How's it going? Doing shot commentaries for the 13th time. Let's go. So this shot's really cool to me. I really had a good time making this with the really good DP, a really good director. I mean, Arthur Gregorian, who's also a DP and also a gaffer that I've hired many times. But for this one, he was in the directing seat. I was DP, and yeah, this was a really challenging shot because we didn't have the time, the money, or the correct equipment to basically level to the exterior as much as Arthur wanted. I don't necessarily mind blowing out windows, but when you're doing a commercial, it's not necessarily always the right choice. And he also isn't a big fan of it for this particular look, also. So we were up against a rock and a hard place where it's like, okay, well, we need to shoot this direction, we need to look over here, and we only have so much light. So we basically just exposed for the background as best we could so nothing was clipping. And we put as much firepower on our talent here as we could. And I believe what we had was like a 4x4 with like 4 Titan tubes in it, through some diffusion, right? And then that went through, I think, a 6x um, like half grid or quarter grid or something like that. Might have been a full grid. I don't remember exactly. This looks really soft, so it was probably a half or a full grid that we went through. So like double diffusing basically. And you can see that source is a single source right there. That's that big guy in both of their eyes right there. So that's what that is. And then in post, we basically just, we did our best to bring down the highlights and the speculars as best as we could without it breaking and looking weird. And yeah, I think the final shot looks great. I mean, you got this nice rich red, rich blues, the golden hair is nice. I do remember in post, in the color, we ended up doing like a kind of a special power window here to bring her hair down because it was a little hot. And yeah, overall, really cool shot here. I like the frame and the frame that we're getting here with him, and kind of even a little bit here with her there. So there's lots going on. We had a shopping cart person going in and out for some motion and action. But yeah, cool shots. The second shot of the spot turned out really cool. So here, jumping over genre a little bit, we're going to a documentary. This was for Everlasting Steps, for Southern Indian Health Council. We did a documentary, and this was kind of like our main subject. Bobby Wallace was his name. And this guy is just, I mean, he oozed cool. Like, this is one of the coolest dudes that you'll ever meet. And he was very fortunate, very kind. We were fortunate for him to share his story of recovery when it comes to alcohol abuse and stuff like that. So he was kind of the anchor for the film through and through. We start the film with him, we end the film with him, and it was just it's just really, really cool to hear his story. But I love this shot because of all the detail that we're getting in the background here. I love all of the random doohickeys and whatnot, and all of the little trinkets and plants that he has. This is all stuff that he had in his home. He took everything out from storage and stuff in other rooms, and we basically just, we decorated it with this fabric here. We had like this ore or something. We had a plant here. All these plants, this little picture, another fabric or curtain. And there's just so much to look at here. We exposed for the windows for this shot because I didn't want this overpowering him for this particular type of shot that we wanted. But it's at a pretty good level. And then the light on him, I believe, it looks like it's just square. So I think we did a very similar thing that I do all the time, which is double break a light through a softbox or through like a 4x4 diffusion, like a 216 or a 251, and then you put that through a as big as you can get. But here it was probably a 6x6 half grid or full grid, or unbleached muslin potentially could have been, and you get this really nice soft roll off, on everything. But we hit it pretty sidey, pretty hard at like a 45 side degree. So, our ratio is really intense, but it fit the story really well. And I also quite enjoy this. So I really like what we're getting here. The eye light looks great. We do get a little bit of like a hard light on him, just a little bit, from like a slash that we ended up throwing on him, which you can see a little bit more in the wide shot. Here, not so much. I think it might be a little bit lower on his body, but we did have like a hard slash on him, just to add some more texture. But yeah, I think if I were to do this shot again, though, and this annoyed me on the day, but I would have scotched over or slid over this plant so it doesn't really look like it's coming out of his head. It doesn't really bother me as much anymore, but it really did at the time. And if I were to do this shot again, I would have moved this plant over here. So the plant was here, and we would have had some green in this corner, and I would have put the ore maybe, you know, leaned against it in such a way where it wouldn't come out of his head. So maybe like that, or just got rid of the ore entirely. So that's probably what I would have done differently, if I had the opportunity to do this again, or potentially just move the plant out of the way. But yeah, still love the shot. Shot serves its purpose, and if I didn't point it out, you might not have even noticed. But these are the things that I see when I look back on old work, and I just can't unsee. All right, so we're back in Mothica land. This is for music video Evergreen, and this is basically her interacting with this little machine thing right before she gets sucked into the dream world of the Evergreen green room, what have you. Pretty simple shot. She was walking down a hallway, like this, and like the hallway is like that, and she's here and she's going down, right? And then she gets to the end, and when we basically cut out a wall. So we moved the facade wall because the hallway was fake, and then we put the camera where the wall would be, and we were able to get this profile shot of her interacting with this little eye scanner, whatever much we'll call it thing. But yeah, I like the frame. I love 4x3. We get for rule of thirds, kind of, that whole thing. So we're getting that. And then I like this kind of line that's coming up here, and we have another focal point here. So we're kind of like, we kind of have a confrontational shot here, because it's kind of like this entity and this person are now coming together. And yeah, the way we lit it was just a single. I literally think it's one light. I think it was just like a 1x1 or a 2x2 light panel, like one of those like skinny ones. Don't remember exactly what it would have been. It could have been a Pavo Slim, probably, from Nan Light or Nan Lux. And we just have it skirted off in such a way where this kind of creates this shadow with the light, so it's not just going everywhere. So you'll see, the shadow kind of starts there. So I think we had like maybe I know we had an egg crate on it, but we might have also put some black wrap on it or something too, just to skirt it off. And then, yeah, you get this nice shape of light on her head here. So her face is all smooth. And again, top light, I do it all the time. It gives you instant depth, like this is brighter than this. This is brighter than this. This is brighter than this. And it's just an easy way, especially when you're in a confined space, to create shape. And top light is definitely a go-to for me many, many times. So yeah, moving on to the last one here, we got completely different vibe again. This is a comical, kind of quirky, ridiculous shot of a man in a really realistic, but still clearly a costume of a alligator or a crocodile. Which one is this? For those who know, I don't know. But yeah, simple shot. I like the framing. We got our hero product, which is the hang pad here. And that's kind of, again, it's framed between the two trees. So we even have this kind of as a frame, right? And then we have the natural ending of it. So we're looking in that window there. And then we have him in between these two. And then just the color blocking, the blue against the green, blue against green. So everything's very crisp and easy to look at. Nothing. You don't need to hunt for anything. It's just very much clear as day, and that's kind of what we wanted for this look as well. So obviously we're shooting outside. So the sun is doing a lot of heavy lifting for us because it's lighting, literally most of this in the background. We're getting some cool backlight from the plants here, right? And we can tell that we're backlighting because the sky is also pretty white, but also just because of the way that these shadows are kind of coming into play from here. So we're starting shooting into the backlight, right? And then that way we don't have to worry about shadows from like our set and whatnot hitting the talent and looking all weird. We have another, I think, an HMI unit. It probably was like an M18 or something, that's creating some backlight, and we might have threw that through like some opal just so it's not as hard as it would be, but we have some backlight hitting the side of our alligator friend here. You can also see that on the tree here. You can also see that on here. So that's creating all those shapes. And then to probably just give him a little bit more contrast, we have like another, HMI M18 most likely, I think it was, and we're just pushing that through probably some half silent grid or something like that. So yeah, pretty simple setup. Nothing too crazy about this one, but again, like when you're doing a commercial and especially a comedic one where you want things to kind of be plain and simple, that's what you got to do. So yeah, that's all I got for you today. I'll see you next time.